here. Wow, this is I'm a little overwhelmed. I've been so excited and nervous about this, I couldn't sleep a wink last night. So I'll do my best to pull myself together. But first, I just want to thank Tate and Dan and Mike, everybody at Visual Studies, for hosting my exhibit as part of, as he said, the larger exhibit of Points of Departure Meditations on Mapping that Karen and Colleen have curated. I brought there's a couple of catalogs that'll be outside to look at, so you can see the whole exhibit. It's been at 7 different venues across Rochester, starting at MCC and the Mercer Gallery over the last 4 months, and really, it's pretty amazing. The one that really struck me was, I don't remember the artist's name, but took string and pencils and tied them to branches in the trees to map the wind. Mm-hmm. And so some really innovative and impressive pieces, and I'm very grateful to be a part of it. I also want to thank very much my family and friends who helped me get here, who physically helped me actually bring the beds here and brought all this here. And so it's been an incredible collaborative effort. And it's just really, it's kind of overwhelming. You guys are very close. I'll go outside, all right? And then maybe we'll go back in the dark. So I mean, I had sort of something that I thought I was going to do, and as things happen, as you travel down whatever the map is you're using, you find over here a little different road to take, and so I've kind of taken a different road. So here we go. I'm an insomniac. Have had sleep issues all my life, but over the last 15 to 20 years, this condition has crystallized into chronic insomnia, which is defined as having trouble sleeping 3 nights a week for a month or longer. I've tried everything to address it. Everything. Warm bath, herb tea, banana smoothie, tart cherry juice, broccoli, yogurt, whole grains, kale, cereal, almonds, melatonin, tryptophan, calcium, magnesium, Sominex, Unisom, Lunesta, gabapentin, Remeron, Trazodone, Seroquel, Librium, Cerax, Ativan, Valium, Paxil, Elavil. Sleeping in a cold room, window open, window closed, socks, no socks, pillow, no pillow, eye mask, lavender balm, bath with Epsom salts, bath with almond oil, bath with no oil, oil with no bath. Sleep tapes, sleep machines with white noise, ocean waves, raindrops, birds singing, monks chanting, making lists, things that start with C, things that are blue, white, green, breeds of dogs, kinds of trees. Get up, walk around, lie down, walk around, lie down, walk around, read, don't read, watch TV, don't watch TV, clean the house, bake bread, grade papers, lay on the floor with the dogs, read poetry, stare at the ceiling, write my will. Downward dog pose, legs against the wall pose, child's pose, plow pose, left nostril breathing, corpse pose. Yet still it persists night after night, year after year, becoming the central issue in my life, an obsession. The more I worry about sleeping, the more I guarantee that I won't. Recently, someone asked me if I like to sleep. Of course I like to sleep, don't I? Doesn't everyone? But the word like kept tripping me up. After considerable thought, I realized that no, I really don't. Something about being in bed upsets me. For one thing, I find sleeping rather time-consuming and inconvenient. Imagine all we could get done if we didn't have to sleep. Could just take a pill instead. Maybe I'm just plain angry that I have to put 8 hours into something I would rather not. That seemed way too easy an explanation, simple annoyance at sleep. There had to be more. Since all the years of pills, procedures, and routines brought me no closer to a good night's rest, I started to wonder, maybe I was going about this the wrong way. Maybe there wasn't anything wrong with me physically and I needed to stop seeking a medical solution. I had tried other alternative options too to address a possible emotional imbalance. Acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, formal meditation. I've been in psychotherapy for years. Then I wondered, how could I take a creative approach, try something different? Since years of examining my insomnia on the inside of me hadn't produced any results, could I possibly devise a way to see the insomnia outside of me? physically manifested so that I could study it, move from the role of victim to it, to an observer of it. And in doing so, could I stop going to others to diagnose me and diagnose myself? I envisioned something like an X-ray viewing box, using image and light to help locate and map the insomnia, then use that map to find my way through it, or around it, or remove the insomnia entirely, whatever that might mean. I decided I would attempt to use my body to paint the insomnia on a canvas of sorts, and though I still don't know where this idea came from, set that painted canvas in an actual bed frame. Why this way of framing seemed important to me, why I didn't just create the paintings and hang them on the wall, took a while to understand. Now I see that it was a critical decision I made. I began by scouring Craigslist for beds, trying to choose ones that seemed to represent stages of bed occupancy in my life. Twin bed, three-quarter bed, full-size bed. I now know I should have found a crib, but only in hindsight. I set them up in my basement and let them sort of settle in. And then I began to create. I spread a very threadbare sheet on a thin foam mattress, then put on a white Tyvek coverall suit. I applied paint all over me, and then lay down on the sheet and moved around in ways that simulated my remembered movements during a restless night. From there, I stretched the sheet on a frame, and then stretched another sheet underneath while stringing lights between the two. Because it took a while to complete all 5 beds, I waited to closely examine them until they were all done and I could look at them as a whole, each as a piece of a possible puzzle I was trying to solve. When I finished, I placed each in its respective bed frame and stepped back to take a look. Due to the crowded space in my basement, I had to set the beds up in a line. So from the beginning, there was a sense of sequence. I saw how the cycle begins, how the insanity sets in, how the strange hallucinogenic world becomes my world. And I saw that moment when finally the cycle starts to break, and then I saw sleep, a few moments of sleep, a few moments of peace. Essentially, I observed what I already knew, but I saw something else too. Landscapes. Not sunny snow-capped mountains in the distance or warm sandy beaches along the ocean, but landscapes nonetheless. A grove of trees, strange sunset, the moon, and figures, horses, a dog, a bull, other creatures that in some odd way were striking and beautiful. It's not what I expected. I had hoped for some obvious abnormality that I could possibly draw a marker around and say, here it is, there it is, that nasty insomnia, and then try to envision a creative way to remove it, which obviously would be a symbolic removal, but ceremonies of cleansing can be powerful indeed. I expected to see the narrative of the insomnia over here and the narrative of my life over there and separate the two, kind of like pulling on a wishbone with my life winning and the insomnia going in the trash. But the more I looked at these paintings, the more I identified with them, liked them in fact in all their strangeness, and could see nothing that didn't seem to belong here. This posed a real problem, because to recognize the familiar in these suggested there were not two narratives, rather showed the insomnia as suggested there were not two narratives, rather than show the insomnia as a condition separate from my life. They seemed to be telling me that the insomnia is my life, and that it had a message for me. It is what it is. Stop fighting and use it to open creatively. That was my answer. Accept it instead of cure it. So I wasn't going to be famous. See the story in the New York Times, Rochester artist finds cure for insomnia in body painting. I already had the frame for where I was going to put that. But that's fine. I had these beautiful landscapes and the project was very informative, and that was definitely something. I'd known from the beginning that I wanted to do a writing piece in tandem with the creation of these paintings, and so began that, thinking I would write about my life of insomnia, trying to illuminate the world where the insomniac lives, which I think I did, as a way to connect with others who suffer from it and to give those who don't a better understanding of what it is. Maybe take a journal format, address the insomnia right out. So I began this too. And then things changed. A new direction emerged. I want to go back to my decision to use actual bed frames as part of this installation, part of the world I hope to create. Again, because of the space I was working in, these frames were literally touching one another, And when the canvases were placed in each, they actually took over and became the subject of the piece, when initially I believed the beds would be the subject, and that the relationship between the painting and the bed would be integral to discern meaning. Since the paintings were lit from beneath, it was easy to see how the frames got lost, how the beds themselves faded into the chaos of space. When I moved the exhibits here, the beds were separated quite a bit. Rather than one enmeshed experience or world, I saw 5 different worlds. I saw the bed itself, the frame, the design in the frame, material, shadows, how the frame was almost more significant than the painting, which I had concluded represented the merging of my life and my insomnia. The bed was now the focus. The painting, while interesting, when not so closely joined to the others, no longer seemed to be about me, but rather took on an archetypal feel, as if these were stories in the collective unconscious. It would seem distance provided me a more detached and objective interpretation. Maybe we were all just a little too close down there in my basement. Then, when walking by one of the beds, I saw it. The wolf. Snout, dark eyes. Impossible not to think about the obvious reference to Little Red Riding Hood. To see in this wolf resting in a bed the same wolf dressed as the grandmother, whom he had just swallowed. In the story, he goes on to gobble up Little Red Riding Hood too, in the bedroom, which is where the story ends, trauma in the bedroom, at least in the Charles Perrault version. And while the moral of that tale is children shouldn't talk to strangers even if they appear gentle and unassuming, it seems logical there could be another takeaway. Just don't go near the bed and you won't get swallowed up. What became clear to me in this new space is that the story is not just the insomnia, it's the bed. And that I am supposed to look at the places we sleep and, though not often intentional, the negative associations we as a culture place on our beds and on those who sleep in them. Think about the cradle or the bassinet. I'm dating myself here, I know. Today they're called infant seats, that little rocking contraption that most of us spend at least a few weeks at the beginning of our lives in. Great idea, a place to stuff us all swaddled and warm. They're portable, easy to carry. My mother tells me the story of my time in a bassinet when she and my father, while eating dinner, would put me on the floor and take turns rocking me with their feet. All quite lovely and probably not too traumatic, though I'm not sure what I thought about this foot hovering over the side of my world. Now consider the lullaby rockabye baby. All well and good as long as we're in the treetops, rocking with the wind. But essentially, when the bough breaks, the baby falls, and likely, if you take this a little further, is seriously injured or worse. Why do we sing such a song to children? Now consider the crib where we put our kids after the cradle. Supposedly a really good idea, a safe, secure place for the child to sleep on its own. Logically, it makes sense, but from whose perspective? Because I can only imagine how I might have felt plunked down in this prison with open slats that resembled bars. As a sensitive child who struggled to filter the external world and who often became phobic by mistaking context, I wonder if the trauma I feel around sleep started with the places I slept in. Maybe my insomnia is simply dread of the bed. So I'm on a different path now, to examine the actual apparatus of sleep and how the bed and all the stories, both implicit and explicit, affects the quality of our rest. See how insomnia might be more a misinterpretation than a disorder. Definitely a book to keep you up all night. Am I sleeping? Is it better after all this? In a way it is, because it's useful now, has brought me here tonight and has opened me creatively. And that in itself could be the beginning of a cure. So I want to thank you all for coming. I know it's probably past your bedtime, so I want to make sure that I get you out of here on time. I'm happy to answer any questions, but I hope you enjoyed the show or enjoy the show. It's open now till 7, and over now.